Discipline begins where motivation dies. You stand at the edge of a familiar precipice, the one where the bright, fleeting spark of motivation flickers and dies. It's a place you know well, a landscape often visited. You've felt the surge of inspiration, the electric hum of a new idea, the conviction that this time you'll finally conquer that daunting task, build that dream, or transform that habit. You've meticulously planned, gathered your resources, and even felt that initial burst of energy, ready to dive in. But then the inevitable happens. The initial thrill fades, replaced by the sheer weight of the effort required. The path forward seems longer, steeper, and far less appealing than it did in the glow of that initial enthusiasm. This is the moment discipline begins its quiet, essential work. And it's precisely where most journeys falter. Perhaps you felt it in the early morning hours, the alarm a jarring intrusion into a comfortable dream, the warmth of your bed, a siren's call far more persuasive than any grand ambition. Or maybe it's the afternoon slump, the allure of a quick scroll through social media, or the simple comfort of doing nothing, a stark contrast to the focused effort needed to complete that report, learn that new skill, or nurture that relationship. This isn't a failing of character, it's a deeply human experience. We are by nature drawn to ease, to immediate gratification, to the path of least resistance. Motivation is a powerful yet fickle companion. It arrives like a guest, full of energy and bright promises, but it rarely stays for the long haul. It's the initial wind in your sails, exhilarating and necessary for getting started, but it's not the engine that will carry you through the storm or the calm seas that inevitably follow. This is the fertile ground where true progress is either sown or abandoned. The title itself, Discipline Begins Where Motivation Dies, isn't a harsh decree. It's an invitation to understand a fundamental truth about human endeavor. It's about recognizing that the grand visions and passionate beginnings are only the prologue. The real story, the one that shapes our lives and defines our achievements, is written in the quiet, often unglamorous moments of sustained effort. It's in the deliberate choices made when no one is watching, when the immediate reward is absent, and the only driving force is a commitment to the outcome, however distant it may seem. This script isn't about chasing elusive bursts of inspiration or waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Instead, it's about cultivating an inner resilience, a quiet strength that allows you to move forward even when the initial fire has dimmed. You've likely experienced this disconnect acutely. You set a goal, you feel the passion for it, and for a while it propels you. Then life happens. Distractions emerge, challenges arise, and the sheer effort involved begins to feel overwhelming. The initial excitement, the very thing that got you started, can become a source of frustration when it inevitably wanes. This is where the conventional wisdom often fails us, suggesting we just need more motivation, more inspiration. But what if the secret lies not in finding more external sparks, but in building an internal engine that runs independently of them? What if discipline isn't a punishment, but a liberation from the tyranny of fleeting feelings? This journey is about understanding that the most profound changes, the most lasting achievements, are built not on the ephemeral highs of motivation, but on the steady, unwavering foundation of discipline. Consider the warrior, a figure often associated with immense discipline. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary swordsman, understood this deeply. His approach wasn't about waiting for the perfect alignment of stars or a surge of battlefield adrenaline. It was about a rigorous daily practice, a constant refinement of skill and spirit. He recognized that true mastery, and indeed true freedom, comes not from an absence of challenges, but from the ability to meet them with unwavering resolve, regardless of emotional state. This is the essence of what we'll explore: how to harness that internal power, how to build a framework for consistent action that transcends the unpredictable tides of motivation. It's about learning to stand firm when the wind of inspiration dies down and finding strength in the stillness that follows. This isn't about becoming a stoic automaton, devoid of feeling, but about integrating a profound, humane understanding of ourselves into a practice of consistent, purposeful living. Think about a time you committed to something, perhaps a fitness goal, a creative project, or a personal habit. You were likely filled with enthusiasm, picturing the end result, the success, the transformation. This initial surge, this motivation, is a beautiful thing. It propels you forward, making the first steps feel almost effortless. You might have felt invincible, convinced that this time it would be different. But then, the days turned into weeks, and the novelty wore off. The early mornings became harder to face, the tedious parts of the process began to drag, and the immediate gratification you hoped for remained just out of reach. This is the universal human experience, the point where the vibrant colors of motivation begin to fade, revealing the more nuanced and often challenging landscape of sustained effort. This is precisely where the crucial distinction lies, the difference between starting and continuing, between a fleeting interest and a lasting commitment. Motivation is the spark that ignites the fire, but discipline is the wood that keeps it burning. Without discipline, the fire dies, leaving only ashes and regret. Many of us are conditioned to believe that we must always feel like doing something to do it. We wait for the mood to strike, for the inspiration to hit, for the perfect alignment of external circumstances. But this reliance on external validation or internal emotional states makes us vulnerable. It leaves us adrift, tossed about by the unpredictable waves of our own feelings and the ever-changing currents of life. We end up chasing a phantom, forever waiting for the perfect moment that rarely, if ever, arrives. This is the paradox. The very thing that makes us feel most alive and driven, motivation, can also be our greatest obstacle if we depend on it exclusively. The promise of this journey is not to reignite that initial fleeting spark, but to help you build a different kind of power, a deeper, more sustainable force from within. It's about understanding that true progress, the kind that reshapes your life and leaves a lasting impact, is forged in the moments after the initial excitement has faded. It's about learning to show up, to put in the work, even when you don't feel like it, even when the path ahead seems arduous. This is the quiet revolution, the internal shift that transforms potential into reality, and it begins with the simple, profound understanding that discipline is not the enemy of freedom, but its very foundation. We will explore how this seemingly austere concept, when understood through a lens of humane wisdom, becomes the most liberating force you can cultivate. It's about finding grace in the effort, strength in the consistency, and peace in the knowledge that you are building something real, day by day, action by action, regardless of how you feel. You stand at the threshold of a profound realization, one that often arrives not with a thunderclap of inspiration, but with the quiet, persistent whisper of necessity. It's the moment when the initial, vibrant energy that propelled you forward begins to wane, leaving you facing the stark reality of sustained effort. You've felt it, haven't you? That surge of enthusiasm for a new project, a fitness goal, a creative endeavor. The feeling of boundless possibility that makes the first steps seem almost effortless. You envisioned the outcome, the transformed self, the achieved ambition, and for a time, that vision was enough. But then, the inevitable happens. The novelty fades, the immediate rewards remain elusive, and the sheer, unglamorous work begins to loom. This is the precipice where motivation, that fickle muse, often deserts us, leaving us to question our resolve. This is the critical juncture, the point where discipline must step in, not as a harsh taskmaster, but as a steady, guiding hand. The common misconception is that we must always feel motivated to act. We wait for the perfect mood, the opportune moment, the external spark that will reignite our passion. But this reliance on fleeting feelings leaves us vulnerable, perpetually at the mercy of our emotional tides. We become passengers on a ship steered by the unpredictable winds of inspiration, often finding ourselves becalmed or tossed about by storms, unable to chart a consistent course. The title, "Discipline Begins Where Motivation Dies," is not a statement of defeat, but an invitation to a deeper, more resilient form of agency. It's about understanding that true progress is not contingent on the presence of constant enthusiasm, but on the cultivation of an inner resolve that can carry us forward even when the initial fire has dimmed. Consider the subtle, yet profound shift in perspective that occurs when you recognize this. It's not about eradicating desire or passion. It's about building a framework that supports action independent of them. Imagine Miyamoto Musashi not waiting for the heat of battle to hone his skills, but engaging in rigorous practice day after day in the quiet solitude of his own making. His discipline was not a reaction to external pressure, but an intrinsic part of his being, a way of life. This is the essence of what we will explore. How to cultivate that inner engine, that quiet determination that allows you to show up and do the work, not because you feel like it, but because you have committed to it. This journey is about understanding that the most meaningful achievements, the deepest transformations, are not born from the ephemeral highs of motivation, but from the steady, unwavering practice of discipline. You've experienced the intoxicating rush of motivation, the almost euphoric feeling when a new idea sparks, a goal crystallizes, or a personal challenge presents itself. It's a powerful force, isn't it? It makes the initial steps feel light, the path forward seem clear, and the desired outcome feel tantalizingly within reach. You might have cleared your schedule, gathered your resources, and felt an unwavering conviction that this time you would see it through. This is the siren song of motivation, beautiful and seductive, urging you onward with promises of effortless progress and inevitable success. It's the wind in your sails, the initial burst of energy that can propel you out of the harbor and onto the open sea. But as you know, the open sea is not always calm. The initial exhilaration eventually gives way to the steady, often monotonous rhythm of the journey. The wind may die down, the waves might become choppy, and the distant shore can begin to feel impossibly far away. This is the moment when motivation, having fulfilled its primary role of initiating action, often begins to recede. It's not a failure on its part, nor necessarily a failing on yours. It's simply the nature of this powerful, yet transient force. And it's precisely at this point, where the initial drive begins to falter, that a different kind of strength must emerge. This is where discipline begins its quiet, essential work, transforming the potential energy of motivation into the kinetic energy of consistent action. The title, "Discipline Begins Where Motivation Dies," speaks directly to this universal human experience. It's not a call to abandon passion or enthusiasm, but an invitation to understand that these feelings are not the sole or even the most reliable drivers of long-term achievement. Instead, it suggests that true progress is built on a more steadfast foundation. It's about recognizing that the most significant aspects of our lives, our health, our relationships, our skills, our contributions, are rarely the product of spontaneous bursts of inspiration. They are instead the cumulative result of deliberate choices made and actions taken, even when the initial emotional fuel has run out. This script is an exploration of that transition, a guide to cultivating the inner resilience needed to navigate the inevitable ebb and flow of motivation. Think about the quiet, persistent effort required to master any skill, to build any meaningful relationship, or to achieve any significant goal. It's rarely a story of constant thrilling breakthroughs. More often, it's a narrative woven from countless small, consistent actions. It's showing up when you don't feel like it. It's choosing the harder, more beneficial path when the easier one beckons. It's the patient refinement, the steady practice, the unwavering commitment that occurs in the absence of immediate external validation or the intoxicating rush of inspiration. This is the domain of discipline, a concept often misunderstood as rigid or joyless, but which, when approached with wisdom, becomes the very source of true freedom and accomplishment. This exploration is rooted in the understanding that while motivation can initiate a journey, it is discipline that ensures its completion. It's about acknowledging that our emotional states are fluid and building a practice that honors our commitments regardless of how we feel. We will delve into the practical implications of this, drawing on principles that have guided individuals through centuries of challenge and achievement. The aim is not to deny the power of inspiration, but to build a more robust, reliable engine for progress, one that doesn't sputter and die when the initial spark fades. It's about learning to harness an inner strength that allows you to continue moving forward step by deliberate step, transforming intention into tangible reality. This is the path to sustained growth, to meaningful accomplishment, and to a deeper sense of self-mastery, all beginning at the precise moment when the easy drive of motivation finally yields. The discipline we're cultivating isn't about rigid adherence to arbitrary rules or the suppression of your natural inclinations. Instead, it's about understanding the subtle interplay between intention and action, particularly when the initial spark of motivation has faded. Consider the act of learning a complex instrument. The first few lessons are often exhilarating. You're introduced to new sounds, new techniques, and the sheer novelty of it all keeps you engaged. You might practice for hours, fueled by the excitement of rapid progress. However, as you move beyond the basics, the learning curve steepens. The exercises become more repetitive, the challenges more intricate, and the initial thrill diminishes. It's at this stage that many abandon their pursuit. They've hit the wall where motivation, the initial driver, has waned, and the sustained effort required for mastery feels overwhelming. This is where a deeper understanding of discipline becomes paramount. It's not about forcing yourself through drudgery, but about strategically engaging with the process. One crucial facet is the concept of pre-commitment. This involves making decisions about future actions before you are faced with the temptation to deviate. For instance, when you know a challenging week lies ahead, pre-commitment might mean deciding on Sunday evening precisely when you will tackle your most demanding task each day, and then, crucially, blocking that time in your calendar as non-negotiable. It's about creating an environment where your future, more disciplined self has already made the tough choices for your present self, thereby reducing the reliance on willpower in the moment of decision. This isn't about predicting the future perfectly, but about creating a framework that supports your long-term goals, even when immediate feelings urge you toward ease. Consider the profound freedom that emerges from this perspective. When you are no longer tethered to the unpredictable presence of motivation, you become liberated. You are no longer waiting for permission from your feelings to act. You are empowered by your own consistent choices. This liberation isn't about becoming emotionless or rigid. It's about recognizing that your capacity for action is a wellspring you can tap into at will, independent of external validation or fleeting moods. It's about understanding that the most reliable path forward is paved not with grand gestures of inspiration, but with the steady accumulation of small, consistent efforts. Each deliberate action, taken when motivation is low, becomes a brick in the foundation of your achievements, building a structure of self-trust that is far more valuable than any temporary high. The practice, then, is not about forcing yourself into a state of artificial enthusiasm. It's about embracing the natural rhythm of effort and rest, of starting and sustaining. It's about developing strategies like pre-commitment and the establishment of rituals that create a supportive structure for your intentions. It's about reframing challenges not as obstacles to motivation, but as inherent parts of the growth process, opportunities to deepen your skill and resilience. This is where the true artistry of living emerges, not in the grand, spontaneous bursts of inspiration, but in the quiet, persistent dedication that transforms potential into reality. It's in this space where motivation naturally wanes, that your most profound growth and most enduring accomplishments truly begin to take root. The true practice begins now. If this brought you clarity, stay